Some Iowans have made the choice to move to another town rather than face re-election in a new district. We're going to look at some of the key moves coming up. Also, a national group's name might have you thinking about flags and patriotism. Well, one of its top leaders, who's also an Iowa campaign veteran, will join us to respond to those critics who say the 1776 pledge is trying to whitewash history. And some choose music to try to push back against dementia. But we'll talk with Iowa's former longtime epidemiologist. She'll share her new efforts to get you to also pay attention to your medicine, food choices, hearing, and movement. And Iowa's governor has complained several times that the Biden administration is not considering natural immunity enough when addressing COVID-19 protection. Hear what Patty Quinliss thinks about that versus getting vaccinated.
From your local election headquarters, this is The Insiders with Dave Price.
Let's start with the pledge. Not the Pledge of Allegiance, but a different pledge. It's the 1776 pledge that the group 1776 Action supports. Now, 3 members of the Johnston School Board signed on to that and campaigned on it and won in their elections. Critics say this is all about ignoring the awful part of this country's history, things like slavery and continued inequality. But supporters of this movement, like Ryan Rhodes, disagree here. Rhodes is an Iowa Republican campaign veteran. He's worked for presidential candidates Michelle Bachmann and Ben Carson. Here's what he says this is all about.
To get out there and start making a difference in education on a local level, because what we've seen, and a lot of parents saw it during the pandemic, and you're seeing this now with these different fights, is our children, the children around the country, a lot of times are being taught, quite frankly, to hate their neighbor and hate their country. And what we're out here doing is exposing some of the radical out left ideologies that are creeping in there with a pledge that really just comes down to loving your country and loving your neighbor.
How are they being taught to hate? When are they ever taught that? And is that happening in Iowa anywhere?
Well, I think you're seeing this in multiple areas. I have friends whose children have come home worried that even one in a case in a mixed race family, they were like, well, which parent is okay because of what they were being taught in the different schools. And you're seeing it attempted with organizations like that Soros has funded and other make a larger inroads in Iowa as it's done in other states around the country as well.
Adam, on the website where it's talking about restore honest, patriotic education that cultivates in children a profound love for our country. What exactly is your organization trying to restore?
Sure. Well, we're trying to restore, first of all, an understanding of the very basic principles that kind of undergird, our entire founding. Ideas like that, such as we're all created equal. A lot of the focus that we're seeing nowadays, it's teaching children that basically, if they look at their classmate, their race is the most important thing that they can know about them, and they know everything about who that person is and what they stand for by looking at their color, which is completely at odds with the very revolutionary idea at the heart of our founding. So that is honestly probably the biggest thing. Is just an understanding of the principles that really made this country great and has allowed us to get through some very tough times. And there have been plenty of times throughout our history where those principles were not being followed. And I think our greatness has been in learning how together to overcome that. And so I think that's the biggest piece.
Ryan, we've just heard, frankly, some school board candidates during some of the races talk about indoctrination.
Yes.
What is that in your mind, and how are children being indoctrinated in school?
Well, I think this gets down to the entire thing where you have people out there that are teaching children that somehow America is a greater evil and not a greater good. This doesn't mean that we sugarcoat issues of our past that we've overcome. That's part of the freedoms that have brought us this far that we get into. But what we want is, as in our pledge, honest, patriotic education that says, yes, we have had mistakes in our past, but we are better in the future for where we've come, and we are a beacon of light to the entire world of freedom and of liberty, and we need to maintain that. And by not teaching our own history properly, it's going to actually put us in a bad spot. And you even see a lot of voices actually in this movement against CRT that are actually liberals. I mean, Bill Maher has brought it up, Barry Weiss, people like that. This isn't what you have is opponents attempting to make it a single race issue, and it's not. We have signers. We have a very, very diverse group of signers, and there's a diverse group of people fighting back on this, which is why you saw even in a blue state like Virginia, this became a main issue that flipped the whole thing.
Where in Iowa is critical race theory being taught? We haven't found that anywhere.
Well, I mean, just in Johnston, they literally were marching around the school saying, hey, critical race theory is here to stay. If it's not being taught, then why are they marching around the school saying it's here to stay and we're doing this? And I think critical race theory gets into a much broader ideology that pits people based on their race and not based on who they are as their character and as Americans.
Adam, going back to one of the things that Ryan had mentioned when talking about the mistakes of the past, that's what critics seem to focus on this, is that this movement is about kind of whitewashing things that we have done in the country's history, like slavery, for example. How should it be taught in our schools moving forward, in your mind?
Well, first of all, I would just start by saying that this notion that we're trying to shield students from learning about history, particularly bad parts of our history, it's a fundamental misunderstanding of what it is that people like us and many parents around the country are fighting against. It's a complete straw man argument that's not based in facts or reality. And it's just a way to it's sort of a virtue signaling argument that we're seeing from their side, and sort of just a lot of word games where that's not the issue. To answer your question about slavery and how that should be taught, the very sad and awful and tragic reality is that slavery was the rule across the entire planet. And 17, for hundreds of years, if you track the number of abolitions that happened across the country, it was flat because slavery was the rule. And at a certain point, it jumped and it skyrocketed up and it never came back down. And if you look at if you look at that graph, where it jumped up was 1776, because when we created America, it was built upon the notion that we are all created equal, and slavery completely flies in the face of that principle. And so the founders tried to set it on a path to extinction. It started happening very, very quickly, state by state, eventually ending in eventually culminating in a massive civil war. And so slavery, the notion of slavery should be taught is the reality of what it was. It was an evil human institution that went on for a very, very long time. And America was the leader in abolishing it, not only here in America, but across the globe. And that's something that Americans should be very, very proud of. Yes, there was slavery here, and that's a terrible thing, of course. And people should be taught. I mean, reading things like Frederick Douglass's autobiography about what he went through. But it's also a story of redemption, and that's how it should be taught, the full context. The way that it's being taught too often, it's almost like they're trying to teach in a way that America invented slavery, and there's no understanding America without understanding slavery. And because of that, we are irredeemable, which is just bogus.
Ryan, particularly since George Floyd's murder in Minnesota last year, we are seeing communities, including school districts, hiring diversity and inclusion directors or making that part of the curriculum in one way or another here. Do you agree with that concept, or do you believe that the CRT or whatever provisions of this that you disagree with are brought into that?
Well, CRT is a broader thing, and they want to go out there and not necessarily use the words CRT, but in the actions that really get in there. And as Adam said, teaching that America is somehow fundamentally flawed as a country. And then it goes, they tend to use these diversity and inclusion things to go on a broad host of things that goes beyond CRT and other things into things that certain parents may not sit there and say, I want to teach my child this at 6 and 8 years old, that they may not be ready for. So it really spans the gambit of things, and CRT tends to be kind of that founding thing that veers off in a lot of these other ways. But you don't need, our schools should have diverse thought. We have diverse students in our schools, and everybody should be taught that we're all equal. We shouldn't be sitting there and trying to make one particular set of things or another. You see this in certain classrooms, for instance, where they literally have now gone to the point, and they've gone off the other end, where there are schools that have actually divided the students between white and black race. And this is the last thing that we need in our country, is to head back to a more divisive, more racist time where people are being separated on the basis of color. And that's where CRT leads.
Now, here's what Johnston Community School District's Director of Communications told us in response about Ryan Rhodes' CRT claim here. Lynn Meadows emailed me saying, quote, the Johnston Community School District does not teach critical race theory, CRT, a college-level theory class typically taught in law schools. We have not adopted teaching materials related to CRT and don't have teachers trained in CRT. Instead, instruction for Johnston students aligns with Iowa core standards as required by state law, end quote. Next, the new mission for Iowa's former state epidemiologist. It's a tribute to her late mother and grandfather.